put it as eloquently as Mr. Roy has. But 40,000 people, and that's how many people that 40 grams of fentanyl seized in the city that I was born in, Jamestown, New York, could have killed. 40 grams, that is the equivalent of 7 United States quarters in weight. It was found during a routine traffic stop in Jamestown, far from the southern border, but it's made New York and in my district a border community, grappling like so many other communities with the deadly influx of fentanyl that is killing our next generation. Across the country in San Diego, Customs and Border Patrol has seized 5,091 pounds of fentanyl. 60% of the total 8,425 pounds seized around the entire country. And that's just in the first 9 months of 2022. And in fact, Customs seizures of fentanyl in San Diego, they're up by 323% in the last 3 years alone. So I think it begs just reiteration. Mr. McClintock, can you please reiterate one more time what H.R. 2 does to stop the cartels from continuing to smuggle drugs like the 40 grams of fentanyl seized in Jamestown or the thousands of pounds in San Diego over the border?
Well, a few things. Number one, it finishes the border wall, which the Border Patrol says is absolutely essential as a force multiplier. But more to the point, it secures our borders and allows the Border Patrol to actually do their jobs, which is to protect our borders, not to process millions of illegal aliens into the United States, changing diapers, taking names, and all the while unable, often instructed not to do their jobs. And that's another frustration I find from the expressed from the Border Patrol. One of them said, we don't need new laws, we need to enforce the laws that we have, and they won't let us do it.
Absolutely, thank you. The bottom line is people that are dying because this administration has simply refused to secure our nation's border. And those that are dying aren't just the ones down on the Rio Grande after being trafficked into this country by the cartels. It's Americans in small towns, in big cities, far from the border, and they're dying because President Biden, Secretary Mayorkas, and others have simply refused to do their job, and they continue to be derelict in their duties. My Democratic colleagues today, they've called this legislation inhumane, unjust. I'd just like to remind everyone what a truly inhumane thing is. It's turning one's back on the influx of a lethal drug that is killing your fellow Americans. This administration has so thoroughly failed at its job to protect our country and to maintain operation control of our southern border that the cartels and others are seeking to break our laws and enter our countries illegally smuggling drugs, weapons, people, have now turned to our other land border. I'd like to take a minute to highlight the crisis now unfolding on our northern border, not far from my own district in western New York. In the Buffalo sector, the Border Patrol agents in the first 3 months of 2023, they had already encountered half of the total number of illegal crossings encountered in all of the previous year. In that same first 3 months, further west in the Grand Forks sector, agents had already encountered 3/4 of the numbers of individuals as they had throughout all of 2022. The number of assault charges against federal agents along the northern border is up very sharply. In September 22, a Mexican national who flew to Canada assaulted a federal agent while attempting to illegally enter the United States. Earlier in 2022, a man was charged with human smuggling after attempting to smuggle migrants from India across the northern border. Now, last year, Customs and Border Patrol along the northern border seized enough fentanyl to kill roughly 3.17 million people. This is the result of a president, a very derelict Secretary of Homeland Security, and an administration, and frankly, for the past few years, a Congress that sends a signal through every policy and every action that our laws, our borders, our sovereignty will not be enforced. I support this legislation wholeheartedly, and when I do so, I'll be thinking about the residents of the small towns in the cities in my own district and in many others across this country who have had their lives torn apart by the flood of fentanyl that this administration has stood by and allowed unchecked across our borders. I want to thank the witnesses for their, long hours of testimony here so far, and Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Well, thank you very much, and I want to join my friend from New York in thanking all of you for being very patient. It's obviously been a very long session for each of you. We appreciate your cooperation and your insight and contributions. And with that, the witnesses are excused.